That's right, we're at this point in the series. You guys know what happens in this movie.
Avada Kedavra.
Spoiler alert? So Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince is the 6th movie in the Harry Potter series. We are almost there. This one was once again directed by David Yates. And I've always described Half-Blood Prince as like the calm before the storm in the Harry Potter series. This is obviously the 2nd to last book in the series and the 3rd to last movie in the series because they split Deathly Hallows into 2 movies. So this movie gives you everything you need to know before it just all hits the fan. And this movie's got a lot of good in it. It's got some bad stuff in it. We're going to talk about that too. But even just the way this movie starts out, like you look at Order of the Phoenix, that one started with Harry and Dudley getting attacked by the Dementors. Just from that opening scene, you get the feeling like, oh wow, these kids aren't safe anymore. It's gonna be a bumpy ride. And Half-Blood Prince does have an interesting opening scene that actually isn't in the book. You hear about it in the book, but you don't actually see it. It's the Death Eaters, they're attacking London, they go to Diagon Alley, kidnap Ollivander. And I like that because in Order of the Phoenix, Voldemort was working in secrecy. Now him and his Death Eaters are just out there for the whole world to see. They don't have to hide anymore, they can blast right through Diagon Alley and capture people, board up shops. And now we're in bigger scale Wizarding War territory. After that though, the movie kind of mellows down. Harry gets picked up by Dumbledore at this diner, they go to see Horace Slughorn, who Dumbledore wants to return to Hogwarts. Jim Broadbent plays Professor Slughorn. He's the new potions teacher at Hogwarts, and he does a great job at it. Now, does he look the part? Debatable. But as far as the character and his mannerisms and his personality, I thought Jim Broadbent nailed it. Slughorn really likes getting in touch with the rich and famous. He had this thing back when he was a teacher at Hogwarts called the Slug Club. Any student who he thought he saw a powerful future in, he took them under his wing and is like, hey, nestle here, it's safe and warm. And then just pay me back later once you're rich and famous. So immediately he gravitates to Harry, and Dumbledore tells Harry, you have to let Slughorn gravitate to you because Slughorn's got some info that we need to defeat Voldemort. Slughorn does have a lot of great scenes, and this character requires a lot of emotional range because like when Harry's in his lessons, he's all, oh, Harry, my boy, come in, hey, oh wow, your potion was perfect, that's amazing, good job, Harry. But then when you're getting down to it and Harry has to find out this knowledge that Slughorn has about Voldemort, he's like embarrassed and ashamed of it. He's like, don't think too badly of me, you don't know what he was like back then. This guy's got a lot of regret, and he kind of uses that really expressive personality to mask that. So the main plot of this movie is Harry and Dumbledore working together to figure out how to defeat Voldemort. Over the summer in between Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore was looking around for memories, people that have connections to Voldemort. Dumbledore's trying to find out more about Voldemort's past. It's kind of like Grand Admiral Thrawn. He's like, you gotta know your enemies to destroy them. So throughout this movie, Harry and Dumbledore, they're having their own private class sessions basically, where Dumbledore will show Harry a memory. And I like the memory scenes that they show. I know one of the big gripes of this movie is they don't show enough of those memory scenes. The ones that they do show are nice. You get to see Dumbledore first meeting Voldemort. I also like the line that Harry asks Dumbledore after that lesson when Harry's like, did you know, sir? And Dumbledore goes, did I know that I just met the most dangerous dark wizard of all time? No, I didn't. And so when you're watching that memory, it's like, yeah, he's a disturbed little kid, but I mean, he's an orphan. What, like, he's had a troubled past. It's almost like Terminator watching those memories. Like, if you could go back and change the past, would you do that? Would you walk into an orphanage and just slaughter a 10-year-old kid knowing what he's gonna cause him and other people to suffer in the future? I might be reading too far into this, but that's kind of what I got from it. And they also show that Voldemort, or Tom Riddle as he was known back then, while he was at Hogwarts, he got really connected with Slughorn. And Slughorn gave Tom Riddle some info about dark magic, and that's why Voldemort's been able to survive for so many years. So they get the main story beats down. They give you the one that you absolutely have to have. However, would I have liked to have seen the Gaunt family? Yes, I would have. Would I have liked to seen Hepzibah Smith and Helga Hufflepuff's cup that eventually gets turned into a Horcrux? Absolutely. But again, this is a 2.5-hour movie. You can't squeeze a 700-page book into that time. Again, Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings extended cut, they could have done that with Half-Blood Prince, would have been really cool, but I don't think the movie is completely crippled because they cut those scenes out. And along with that main plot of Harry and Dumbledore trying to figure out Voldemort, this movie's also got a couple of big subplots happening. So Draco Malfoy, who kind of got sidelined in the last 2 movies, especially in Order of the Phoenix. I think he only had like 2 or 3 lines in the whole movie. Draco Malfoy is now relevant again, and he is plotting something. Harry's not entirely sure what it is, but Harry's under the impression that Draco Malfoy is now a Death Eater. Harry starts obsessing over Malfoy, he's tracking him. Malfoy at times just completely disappears off the Marauders map, and Harry's trying to figure out this whole time, like, what is Malfoy up to? Is this something to do with Voldemort? Probably is, if he thinks he's a Death Eater. And Tom Felton as Malfoy is another character in this movie that requires a lot of emotional range, because usually Malfoy walks around like, oh, I'm so cool, like puffing his chest and stuff. But in this movie, he's a lot more subdued. He's like ditching Crabbe and Goyle at times. He's really keeping to himself. And there's also a scene in a bathroom when one of Malfoy's plans goes wrong. Harry walks in and Malfoy's just standing there at the sink, like crying, freaking out. You get the feeling that Malfoy is just way over his head with this. Yeah, when Voldemort gave him the job, he was probably like, yeah, awesome, I get to work for Voldemort. I can be a cool Death Eater again. It'll make up for my dad and how he screwed up in Order of the Phoenix. But as the movie goes on, he starts to unwind. He's like, I don't know if I can do this. And if I don't do this, I'm gonna die. And the other thing that this movie explores is the relationships between the characters. Obviously, the characters are getting a lot older now. Ron's on the Quidditch team. He starts dating a girl named Lavender Brown, and she hasn't really been in any of the movies before. Don't tell me that there was an extra named Lavender Brown. I know there was. I don't count that. And Hermione's getting really annoyed by that. One, because she's starting to have feelings for Ron, and two, because Lavender is just like the anti-Hermione. She's really girly and bubbly, and she's super into pink. She makes like cute pet names for Ron. So Ron's dating Lavender. Hermione kind of has a thing for Ron now, and Harry now, and this is the most complicated one, is he's starting to like Ginny. Complicated because obviously Ron is his best friend, and she's also dating Dean Thomas for most of the movie. Now, this movie does spend a good amount of time on that whole romance subplot, but the book also spends a lot of time on that subplot too. Like I said, this movie's the calm before the storm. Like, Order of the Phoenix was a really intense movie. This is kind of like the breather, like, alright. These are still technically high school kids before we get to the final epic battle in Deathly Hallows. So I like it. Overall, those scenes are still kind of played for laughs, and I think that's a good route to go. There are a couple scenes though, for instance, when Ron kisses Lavender and Hermione goes off and she's crying. They do get a little more emotional in this movie than they did when, like, say they were asking their dates to the Yule Ball and Goblet of Fire. But I still felt really bad for Hermione in that scene. It was all just, that was handled very well. I think they found a good blend with this movie, trying to mix all those different subplots as well as this whole romance thing. However, is the movie perfect? No, it's not really that perfect. I've been praising a lot of the actors in this movie, and for the most part, everyone does a good job. However, the one that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, that would be Bonnie Wright as Ginny. I like Bonnie Wright. She seems like a nice person, and she looks identical to how I picture Ginny to look in the book. And overall, she doesn't do a terrible job with Ginny. She's not Natalie Portman in Attack of the Clones, all saying, "I truly, deeply love you." We don't get anything like that, but the thing is that Ginny is much more prominent in this movie and book than she's been in the previous movies and books. And her personality and attitude shine a lot more in this book. And yes, I'm talking about actual personality, not... Never mind. In the book at times, she almost has that, like, one of the guys type of feel where she's cracking jokes with Ron and Harry. Especially at the Burrow at the beginning of the book, she hangs out with them a lot more. And in this movie, she's not like Kristen Stewart. Like, she still smiles and she's still expressive, but she's just not as expressive as she should have been. You know what I mean? Some of the scenes with Harry and Ginny fell a little flat because of that, like when they're trying to hide Harry's potions book in the Room of Requirement. They share a nice moment, they lean in to kiss, and it's just a little awkward. Not just because we saw these kids when they were like 10 years old, just because the chemistry wasn't fully there. And again, this movie takes some liberties from the book. Now, overall, I think that Half-Blood Prince is a pretty solid adaptation of the book. However, that's not going to stop me from complaining about things that I wanted to see. So let's go. One of the things I wanted to see is that, you know, Slughorn is now the potions professor. That means what's Snape doing? Snape is now the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. That should have been a really big deal because in the last 5 movies, everyone's saying, you know, Snape really wants to be the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, but Dumbledore doesn't want him that close to dark magic. And especially now you know that Snape did kind of have a past with the Death Eaters. And with Voldemort rising and now Snape is the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, that should have been a really, like, pivotal part of the movie. And it's really not. You don't get any class time with him. And Snape in general just being a really important character in this movie for reasons we'll talk about later. He does get some good screen time. You see him make the unbreakable vow with Bellatrix and Narcissa, and you see him talking with Malfoy. But as far as the classroom element, I feel like you could have done a lot more with that. And this movie deviates from the book in a couple of different ways where I'm thinking like, alright, sometimes books don't always translate well to the big screen. However, some of the changes that they made in this movie, I'm just like, that doesn't make sense. Like logically, that doesn't make sense. One of the facts is Harry uses his invisibility cloak a lot more in this book. He's doing a lot more sneaking around, especially with the whole Malfoy thing. At the beginning of the movie, they go to Nocturne Alley and they're like snooping in on Borgin and Burks. In the book, they're all under the invisibility cloak. In the movie, they're not. I just feel like with Harry being Harry and everyone being able to recognize who he is, when they're going into a section of Diagon Alley that is completely dedicated to dark magic, and Diagon Alley in general is just run down now, I feel like you'd want to be a little more careful about that. It's not like you've got Mad Eye and Kingsley Shacklebolt being your bodyguards or anything. Another part, and this is a big controversial thing, is the whole Burrow attack in the middle of the movie. Obviously, this scene is nowhere in the book. And I know David Yates and Steve Kloves and all them, they put that in there so there would be more action in the movie. And they didn't want to do a big battle at the end of the movie because they didn't want it to feel like Order of the Phoenix and Deathly Hallows, which both have big battles at the end of their movies. And I kind of see where they're coming from, but there's 2 things. So one, there really is no huge battle at the end of Half-Blood Prince. I mean, yeah, there is, but that's not the point of the moment. The point is Harry chasing after Snape and Malfoy. Everything else is happening in the background. And 2, it just doesn't make any sense that Bellatrix and Greyback should all of a sudden just be able to show up at the Burrow. I mean, now that Sirius is dead, they're not sure if Bellatrix Lestrange has access to Grimmauld Place, so the Burrow is now the headquarters for the Order of the Phoenix. And Bellatrix and Greyback just show up, like, can they do that whenever they want? The whole scene in general almost just feels like a reshoot. I feel like you could have shot that scene like 2 weeks before the movie came out, after the movie had wrapped production 6 months prior. It's not even shot that well either. Like, obviously, yeah, they're going through the reeds by the river, and so their view's gonna be a little obscured. But, like, you know that shot when Harry, Ginny, Lupin, and Tonks, they all find themselves again? They're all, like, standing back to back and trying to ward off the Death Eaters? It's like, The shot comes from like the bottom, and it's like you don't even see any stars in the sky. It feels like a soundstage shot. When the movie first came out and I saw that scene, I was like, alright, it's not in the book, but I get why they did it, so I'll give it a pass. But now when I rewatch the movie, I'm just like, no, that was lazy and stupid. So I hate that scene, and it shouldn't have been in this movie. But now, nearing the end of the movie, the thing that you find out from Slughorn is that he taught Voldemort about these things called Horcruxes. A Horcrux is a thing, any sort of object that you can put a piece of your soul into. The way that you do that is by murdering someone. So killing rips the soul apart, you take that part of your soul, you put it in an inanimate object, hide it somewhere. That way, if you die, you can go seek out your Horcrux, and then you're good to go. So Voldemort split his soul into 7 different pieces, and he's got all these Horcruxes hiding all over Britain. So Harry and Dumbledore, they go to this cave because Dumbledore finds out where one of the Horcruxes is. I do love that whole scene in the cave. I think it looks really cool. The stuff with Dumbledore is really intense when he's drinking the potion, and he's screaming for Harry to kill him. And what's so cool is that scene is important later in Deathly Hallows. I mean, right now you're just like, oh, Dumbledore's dying and it sucks, and you hate seeing that. And you think that's it, but in Deathly Hallows, it gets compounded even more. Harry has a battle with the Inferi, Dumbledore does the cool like wand fire thing, and then they get back to the astronomy tower. Dumbledore is really weak. Harry goes to find help, but all of a sudden they hear someone coming, so Dumbledore tells Harry to go hide behind the stairs. You find out that this whole year Malfoy was trying to get some Death Eaters into the school with a secret vanishing cabinet through Borgin and Burke, so he finally gets it. They're up at the tower. Dumbledore is defenseless, and they're all waiting for Draco to kill Dumbledore. He's not doing it, he's freaking out, and then who should wander around the corner other than Professor Snape. You guys all know how this goes down. Snape kills Dumbledore. Dumbledore goes toppling off the astronomy tower. It's a sad scene. This tentpole of the franchise is completely gone now. One thing that they emphasize in Sorcerer's Stone and in this movie too is that with Dumbledore around, no harm is going to come to Hogwarts. But now Dumbledore is gone. That's not good. Not for Harry anyways. So it's a sad scene. It's a tragic scene. However, going back to the book, in the book, Harry was frozen underneath his invisibility cloak. He saw this whole thing happen, but he was powerless. He couldn't do anything about it. In the movie, Harry is just hiding underneath the stairs. Harry is in full control of his body. Now, knowing Harry, I feel like Harry would have rushed to the top and tried to defend Dumbledore. However, what's Harry gonna do? You're going up against Malfoy, Bellatrix, Greyback, and the Carrows. He's gonna go up there, he's gonna get hit by about 5 different killing curses. But that's me watching the movie from an outsider's perspective. But Harry, in the movie, knowing Harry's character, knowing that he's someone who really leaps before he looks, I feel like Harry would have tried to do something about that. But then Harry chases Snape and Malfoy and the Death Eaters out of the castle. You find out Snape is the Half-Blood Prince, which is another part of this movie that I forgot to explain. Harry gets this potions book. It's got a bunch of cool spells and potions in it. It was the property of the Half-Blood Prince. That's why Harry's so good at potions in this movie, and that's a whole other subplot. And the way that this movie ends is kind of similar to the way that Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix both ended. They both ended on a note like things are getting darker, but there's still a sense of hope. This movie has a similar ending, but I feel like the darkness element of it is compounded. You really get the feeling they're staring into a bleak future right now. They've got no Dumbledore. The locket that they got, the Horcrux that Harry and Dumbledore thought that they got, was actually a fake. So Dumbledore really just died for nothing. It's a bleak ending, it's a depressing ending, but at the same time, Hermione and Ron are still there comforting Harry, and they still remind him, hey, you've got us. We're not going to let Voldemort succeed either. We're with you to the end. We're going to help you find these Horcruxes. Honestly, the whole Harry Potter saga kind of has a whole 3-act structure to it. I would say the first act being Philosopher's Stone through Prisoner of Azkaban, the second act being Goblet of Fire through Half-Blood Prince, and then the final act being Deathly Hallows. And in that, this movie kind of has an Empire Strikes Back type of ending. It's that end of the second act. The characters have hit their lowest low. One of the most powerful wizards of all time just died. The only person that could have stood between Harry and Voldemort, he's gone. And because of that, I really like the ending for this movie. It's a great setup into Deathly Hallows. The movie's got a couple problems, some plot points that just don't make sense at all, but this movie didn't let me down in the slightest. I really like Half-Blood Prince. I think that this is one of the more underrated Harry Potter movies. Check it out. It's really good. It's a good character study, while giving you a breather before everything happens in Deathly Hallows, and also still building on that darkness that we've been experiencing for the last couple movies. So Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, have you seen it? What'd you think about it? And if you've read the book too, what's your favorite memory that Harry and Dumbledore saw about Voldemort? Was it in the movie? Was it not in the movie? I gotta reread the book, but I remember really liking the one when Voldemort goes to visit his grandfather. Or actually, it wasn't his grandfather, it was his uncle. So Morphin Gaunt, when he goes to visit him, and that's when he gets the ring. I think I remember liking that one a lot, but whatever your favorite memory from the movie or the book was, comment down below. And thanks so much for watching this video. If you like it, you can click subscribe and check out some of my other stuff, and I'll catch you guys next time.